They told me not to smoke drugs, but I wouldn't listen. Never thought I'd get caught and wind up in prison. Chalk it up to youth, but young age I ain't dissing. I guess I just had to get it out of my system, out of my system.
And welcome to Uncarcerated. I'm Lee Scott.
Julius Irving.
And we are on the road. This is road trip edition of Uncarcerated. We were in Atlanta. We are now in Montgomery. I know I'm violating the first rule of podcasting by dating ourselves on this road trip, but it's important and impactful why we're on this road trip. We went to Atlanta because we are part of the Represent Justice 2026 Fellowship, and we just both made films, and that was really impactful, and we'll talk a little bit about that on today's show. But Julius and I decided to take a road trip to Montgomery, to the Equal Justice Initiative Legacy Museum, and it was one of the most profound, impactful, meaningful experiences I've ever had. And we have the podcast stuff with us, and we thought we'd bring you a show.
Yeah, for sure, man. It was such a, just eye-opening experience. I know the truth already. I know about slavery. I know about the mass incarceration, but to see the truth and the whole history of slavery and just all of that stuff, man, it did something powerful to me. The same thing happened to me today that happened when I watched the Alabama Solution, that happened when I first saw the movie Roots, the same thing that happened when I found out who Malcolm X was and who the Black Panthers were. It was just a powerful experience, bro.
Yeah, and I couldn't think of anybody else I'd rather have there than you, my brother, by my side. I was originally going to go by myself. It was just going to be something I did on my way to New Orleans. And I knew that it meant a lot to me. And I also have obviously studied, slavery, the connection to Jim Crowe, the failures during Reconstruction, all the way up to mass incarceration. But to see it firsthand in this way not only connected the dots in a whole different way for me, but it did something to my soul. And I wanted both of us to talk about it from our perspectives. Obviously, my perspective as a white man in the United States, but a formerly incarcerated and systems impacted white man. But your perspective as a black man, we actually found your family's name on the Freedom Wall. And so I want to talk about that experience from both our perspectives and obviously from the show's perspective. This is Uncarcerated, and we're here to talk about mass incarceration and destigmatize. The Equal Justice Legacy Museum opened its doors April 26, 2018 in Montgomery. It was designed to address the lack of cultural spaces that honestly reckon with America's history of racial injustice. And, the fact that this was formed in 2018, it just shows we have not come that far. This should have been the Vietnam Memorial went up not too long after the Vietnam War. The 9/11 Memorial went up, 10 years after 9/11?
Yeah.
And this took years and years and years to get off the ground.
And for me, it's I really appreciate it for, what it did from my perspective, how it just motivated me to want to just go harder. But I couldn't help but feel like, with that being there in Alabama, and for those guys to be going through what they were going through in the Alabama Solution, I don't know, bro. It was empowering, but it also was just hard to just see, bro. It was hard to see, and it makes me look at everything just differently, man.
Yeah, to know that, that 10 million black people were kidnapped and brutally killed or enslaved, that the entire country was built on the backs of people. And then the Civil War happened. And then in Reconstruction, the deal, I think it was Rutherford B. Hayes, to get elected, he does a backdoor deal to end Reconstruction, pull the federal troops out of the South, ending protections for black people in the South and everywhere else. And you had thriving communities that were just ended because we did not deal with the Confederacy. We did not reckon with this. And you're right. The fact that this museum is here and it's educating and it's powerful, but, you know, just a couple hours away, we still have slavery because we have Alabama prisons that are treating people, still enslaving people, still locking people up, dealing with them brutally and inhumane. And it's, you know, 5 blocks away from this museum.
Facts, bro. I mean, the exact same stuff that I saw in that museum that was happening to my people way back then is still happening right now in the prison systems. And, you know, slavery really hasn't ended. I think something that I got from that, right, was the fact that I just know that slavery hasn't ended. It's just transitioned to a different form. But this shit crazy, man. And it also made me kind of sad because I recognize how I've been, like, kind of part of the problem, you know, too. You know, in my earlier years, right, I was so influenced and affected by Black History Month, knowing who Malcolm X was, knowing who Fred Hampton was, and knowing who, you know, Huey P. Newton was and everything. And I aspired to want to be like the next Malcolm X, but I didn't see any of that kind of representation in my own community and neighborhood. And I just see how destructive some of the current cultures are, bro. Like it made me look at rap music different. It made me look at just everything differently, bro. Like, I don't want to be a part of this system, part of this destructive culture. I want to just, you know, bring about some unity, bro. Like, this shit is crazy, man.
Yeah,
it's
you
crazy.
know, it's so easy to, like, get inspired by something and then go about your day, you know, like, this is going to influence me or bother me for a little while. Look at our news cycle, you know. There's a mass shooting, and then obviously everybody's like, we should do something about mass shootings. Maybe it's mental health. Maybe it's this. Maybe it's the guns, right? And then a week later, something else happens and we've forgotten about it. And internally, we're influenced by something. And then we are living in such a consumer-driven culture. We have trauma that we have not dealt with, and everybody's got their warm security blanket. Maybe it's a toxic relationship. Maybe it's drugs and alcohol. Maybe it's binge watching something. But it's so easy to go, what can I really do about it? Or to start doing something about it and drive the car in a different direction. And you know, it's so overwhelming. It's the system, from slavery to Jim Crowe to mass incarceration. These systems are well-oiled machines, and you as one person, us as 2 people with microphones and a podcast and a small following, like, you feel like, what can you do? Well, okay, so I'm going to go get a cheeseburger and work my 9 to 5, and there's not much I can do about it, right? And so when I hear you say, you know, this is what I wanted to do, and I was influenced to do this, and I blame myself for not keeping a straight line, I think you're speaking to the human condition. I think everybody does that.
I can't see myself going back to, like, you know, just binge watching social media, worrying about rapper drama, bro. There's so much going on out here in this world, and it's easy to forget that some of the freedoms that I experienced day by day they were fought hard for, bro. People lost their lives for this, man. You know, when you say, what can I do as one person who's been inspired, bro? I'm gonna do the same thing they did, bro. I'm gonna dedicate my life to this shit, man. You know, freedom, right? It's worth living for and it's worth dying for, bro. And I care about the kind of world that I leave my daughters to. You see what I'm saying? Like, I gotta fight harder, bro. This shit means a lot to me. And it's interesting that all of those people fought hard for, you know, justice, for what's right, bro. And right now in American history, those same freedoms are under attack right now as we speak, bro. And I can't just go back to regular life. This has permanently opened my eyes, man. I felt so convicted for just all of those years that I spent, you know, running the streets, you know, being a womanizer, and just wasted time, bro. So, you know, I made a pact with myself today to, like, fully dedicate myself to change, to revolution, to inspiring the people. Man, we really got to wake up. And I know that we can get further faster if we all just do this shit together, man. We need everybody in on this, man, because this shit is fucked up, man.
Yeah, that's why we started this show. We started this show to really document people's experience with the carceral system, whether that was their treatment from police or in courtrooms or with public defenders, the lack of the funds to pay for an attorney and how poverty is intrinsic to all this, whether it was their treatment inside with the Department of Corrections, their lack of access to health care, mental health services, and their journey home. And that's why we started this show, to document this. And that is one of the little things that we can do. Obviously, both of us have full-time jobs. We have a film coming out, and all of us, most of our lives, you and I, Julius, is dedicated to chipping away at this system. But this show in particular is supposed to create community. We've got a website, uncarcerated.org. You can post your art, short stories, blogs. You got a podcast, you got a film. We'll host that stuff. You can email us, uncarceratedpod@gmail.com, to come on the show and tell your story. But, I wanted to kind of take us through the experience of this museum. It starts off with the history of the slave trade. And the very first thing that you see when you come in is they have this graphic of the black dots representing slave ships from 1510 on, trickling over to the Americas, to South America, North America, the islands, and then it's just floods and floods and floods of these black dots as you get closer to the 1700s. And, then it takes you through not just slavery and what it meant financially, but that the banks that exist today, it shows the banks that were slave trading. This bank now turned into JP Morgan. This bank is now Bank of America. This bank is now Chase. And the people that built their wealth on this are still profiting now. They have wealth because it started like this. So they were passing money down to their families. And so then it takes you through the brutality of slavery, all the way down to the brutal details. And so starting with that part of the museum, what was your thoughts and experience as you're looking at this from a black bodies and what was done to them experience? And what was your experience and your feelings about the fact that the people that hold the cards started this country and started their wealth profiting off this?
Bro, I was just thinking that black people in America, we are owed so much more than what we're given, bro. It's like documented proof in history that America was built off of slavery, bro. Like literally, almost every state inside the United States was built off of slavery, black labor, and for us to be treated the way that we are and viewed the way that we are is just fucking crazy, man. It was hurtful to say the least. And I have children, I have daughters. It was this one display where you could walk up to this cage, and when you walked up to the cage, a holographic image of a slave would come and start talking to you. And it was this one where it was these two young black girls in there, and all they were saying was, "Mommy, mommy." Bro, that junk broke my heart, bro.
Oh my God, dude.
I have 3 daughters, bro. I couldn't imagine my daughters being taken from me or taken from their mom, thrown in cages, treated like animals, and just sitting in the cage crying out for their mom, crying out for me. That shit broke me down, bro, and it just hurt me to my heart to just know that all that my people have gone through and all that we're still going through, and just how, and seeing the psychological effect on us, bro, like how far we've came from the time where we fought hard to the point where now we're just distracted on social media, disengaged from what's happening. And I just want change, bro. I want change for my people.
Slavery has taken many different forms over the years, and obviously the big one that's right in front of us is the carceral system. Every time a system gets caught, right? Oh, you caught us. We have slavery. We won't do that. We'll do Jim Crow. Oh, you caught us. We won't do Jim Crow. We'll just make sure that everybody has shitty schools, shitty food, shitty hospitals. Oh, you caught us doing that. We'll start a prison system. Oh, you caught us doing that. We're just going to flood you on social media with disinformation and turn you into a consumer culture that only cares about brands and labels and status. It's like whack-a-mole with how to treat people shittily. And we've just found new slavery with wage slavery to the system. I think about a lot of times, why don't we all stick together? Why are we not in the streets? Why are we not protesting the fact that there's a prison a mile away from you that's treating people horribly? Why is it the background to your life? Why do you pass by homeless people every day in the streets and drive right by them and don't look at them? Right? And I think about it and I'm like, people can't take a day off. Like other countries they have baked in vacation time. You try some shit in France against the workers, they're going to be burning cars in the streets because their landlord isn't going to be kicking down their door if they miss work. And here, we can't afford to go to the hospital or pay our bills, let alone take a day off to riot in the streets, And so I think you're exactly right that we are distracted, but I also think that's part of the system. The system has purposely done that.
Yeah, for sure, bro. I definitely feel that way. After seeing what I saw in that museum, I walked outside wondering, like, why isn't Alabama on fire right now? And, just being in there and seeing, like, the black employees, like, sweeping and cleaning up and shit as we're seeing all of this stuff, bro. It's like I saw the problem, right, that we all know exists, slavery, systemic racism, and all of that stuff, bro. But I also saw, like, another problem, like people just numb to this shit,
Yeah, and that, that really stood out to me that on the one hand, you have this amazing museum and you have it staffed almost exclusively by black Americans in the South who have jobs. But, to see folks taking out the trash, cleaning, asking you if you want a napkin, right? Like there's something wrong to me. I was like, I hope you really are being paid livable wages, because isn't this, it was like art imitating life somehow.
Yeah, facts though, bro. And to me, it's almost like they're still getting paid off of slavery. You know what I'm saying? That whole museum is about slavery and it's bringing capital into the city that's not being used for like actual justice. It was just a lot to take in, bro. I'm honestly still processing all that I saw there.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to do it in a way where it becomes a concrete part of my perception.
Yeah, and I know it's still a lot, and I wanted to hit record on this as soon as possible. I was still fresh in our minds, but I'm sure if we revisit this 2 weeks from now, we're gonna have different thoughts. But I wanted to take us past the slavery part of the museum to the Reconstruction part and the Jim Crow and the lynching part, and talk about that experience and seeing just how recent this is in our American history and how building blocks of everything that we see today. This show's very timely because of the gerrymandering and the Supreme Court ruling to take away voting rights and to take away, primarily black districts. This connection to Jim Crow is very real. I just wanted to talk to you about like what your experience was in that part of the museum that feels closer to what we're going through right this second.
Seeing all of that history and what happens is like history is currently repeating itself, and like everybody's just all the demographic that I serve and people that I know are so disconnected from like political engagement or civic engagement. A lot of people feel like, hey man, what can I do? But
we tried and look where that got us.
Yeah, right. Yeah, for sure. But I think the greater question is not what you or me can do, is what we can do. We can do a lot. We can do a lot together, bro. And I want to bring everybody I know from Gainesville to that museum so they can see what I saw, bro, and feel what I felt. Because I think it's impossible to see that and not be inspired and not look at your life differently, not look at the way you spend your time differently.
Yeah, I want to talk. You brought up our hometown, so let's talk about Gainesville for a minute. Let's hyper localize the show. Let's violate another rule of podcasting. The guy listening in Kansas and New York and Chicago right now. Who are we kidding? Everybody listens in Gainesville, so we can hyper localize the show. But let's talk about Gainesville, because when we went to the memorial honoring those who have lost their lives in lynchings and how recent that is, you're talking the 40s, 50s, 60s, but primarily these lynchings occurred after the failure of Reconstruction, which was around 1877, I think, is when they pulled the federal troops out and failed this country, and we have not healed from that wound today. What you see with Stephen Miller and Bannon and Trump and this backlash, this Make America Great Again, everything you're seeing, the seeds of it were planted by not dealing with white supremacy and the Confederacy when we had a chance to. Like the Germans dealt with the Nazis, right? Like the Germans dealt with that in a way that got rid of it and stomped it out in a way that it wasn't going to rear its ugly head in that same way again. We did not do that. We did not disarm people. We didn't arrest people. So this memorial has plaques from all these different counties and cities and states all over the country and honors the ones that we know about. These are just the ones we know about, these lynchings in the streets. And I'm going to take you through a few of them, but a few that stood out to me were from our hometown of Gainesville. Obviously, I knew about Rosewood, but there was a bunch of these that I didn't know about. And I've got a few of them right here. The lynching of Moses Smith, Alachua County, Florida, and that was in 1863. The lynching in Noonanville and Alachua, it's hard to see the names because of the way the sign was, but William Bradley, Cooley Jackson, and Harry Huell. The fact that the plaques for these lynchings are in Montgomery, Alabama, and not in Gainesville, Florida, really fucking pisses me off.
Yeah, that part, bro, for real. You know, it's so much hidden history when it comes to Gainesville history, bro. You know, I didn't know that Gainesville was a predominantly black community full of thriving black businesses, black people who are politically engaged, you know, pushing for, you know, equity, and it just got taken away from them, bro, and the whole history hidden. You know, that was crazy. I saw on one sign, bro, where somebody literally got lynched, like right around the corner from University Avenue. It was another lynching on Northeast 6th Street. And all of these were like black men, black women who were, you know, just thriving, doing good, bro. And, you know, that's a part of Gainesville history I think that needs to be honored. You know, we got LGBTQ crossings and stuff. And, you know, I'm not speaking against that community, but I'm just advocating for representation for the black history of Gainesville and some of the things that we've gone through and some of the stuff that, you know, some of the residents are still going through. It was just hard to see that.
Yeah, you know? I'm right there with you. The city of Gainesville's recent sort of defiant, in-your-face DeSantis, we're going to repaint the crosswalks downtown with the LGBTQ pride colors. I'm all for it. Do that. You know, when they made businesses take down the pride flags in Micanopy, my wife led the charge to make sure that commissioner got voted out, and they have their first black female mayor in Micanopy now. And so I'm all for that. But why can you fight for this thing, but you can't fight or honor the history of this thing that affects all of these people that are working, living, playing, spending money, paying taxes in your community? It's really upsetting that, like, this isn't taught in all of our schools. I learned today, I'm today years old, that I learned that in 1865, Gainesville was a predominantly black town with thriving politicians and business leaders and business owners. Reconstruction and pulling the federal troops out, ending protection for black people in the community, led to several lynchings that ousted the black community, pushed them into rural areas. And, you know, I just think it's a travesty that I'm halfway through my life and I'm just learning this about Gainesville. I can tell you who the starting quarterback for the Gators was in 1989, but I couldn't tell you that. It's fucking ridiculous.
It's just so much to take in, man. And but all in all, those really inspired me a lot, man. Like I want to just continue to educate myself, educate my peers, and just get everybody in on this, man. We need everybody to participate. We need everybody to, you know, put the phone down for a little while. Come outside, educate yourselves on what's happening locally, what's happening nationally, and join the fight, man.
I totally agree. Before we wrap it up, is there anything that you think that folks can do today? And, you know, I'm going to speak for a second to, you know, my own self. As I was walking through that museum, I was bawling my eyes out. We got to the part where it led to mass incarceration, and there was an exhibit where you could sit down at a jail phone, a prison phone, and talk to someone who is spending life in prison and hear poems they read and hear how they spent 18 straight years in solitary confinement. And I lost it. I'm just bawling my eyes out. It brought me back to my own prison experience. It brought me back to the people that we love and know that are still inside. You know, I was thinking that I don't know what it's like to be black in America. And the only even inkling I get is having gone to prison and having your rights and freedom stripped away from you. Having that, you know, red letter felony F next to your name gives you some inkling. And even then, it was infinitely easier when I came home from prison because I'm a white man. what can the white community do? What, from wealthy white folks to white allies, white America as a whole, do you have any insight as to what we need to do in America to reckon with what has been done to heal, to be an ally?
Vote with us, share your resources, educate yourselves, and, just join us in the fight, man, because our voice means a lot, but your voice means a lot too, and we need y'all to stand with us in this, for sure.
All right, Julius, thanks for doing this road trip with me, man, and spending some time with me here on Uncarcerated, and
sure.
Can't wait to get back to Gainesville and process this with you.
They told me not to smoke drugs, but I wouldn't listen. Never thought I'd get caught and wind up in prison. Chalk it up to youth, but young age I ain't dissing. I guess I just had to get it out of my system, out of my system, out of my system.